Dragons! Hello, JStars360 here with my thoughts going into How to Train Your Dragon 2. But first, my thoughts on the first one, which is pretty good. I overall liked it. I definitely thought it was one of the better DreamWorks films. I don't think it was the best film DreamWorks has ever done. I still think the first two Shrek films were better. But, again, still pretty good. Miles ahead of Madagascar, and again, considering DreamWorks can sometimes put out either decent or mediocre films, it's nice that they made something good. Again, I don't think it's as good as their other films, but still pretty good. Sorry, just trying to get comfortable. I'm probably gonna watch it again. I might like it more on a second viewing. I've seen the cartoon. So, my thoughts on the sequel. It looks good. I mean, like, everything I've seen from this film so far, including the teaser trailer that came out last year, which was awesome, by the way, looks good. I mean, DreamWorks has put out a lot of not-so-great films in the past year. Last year especially. They haven't had anything great since Kung Fu Panda 2. This looks like it could be something. Oh yeah, sorry if I'm pausing. I just ate, and sometimes when I eat, I just pause, but I digress. So, it looks really good. Like, for one thing, I love how they're aging the characters. It would have been so easy just to do another movie with everyone as kids, but the fact that they're saying this 5 years after the first one, which is realistic given that the first one came out 4 years ago, yeah, it's nice that they're aging the characters. Again, it would have been easy to keep them as kids, but they're aging them. And I'm curious to see what they do with this plot wise. Like, I really hope it leads to a more mature story or something. Also, I really like how... I just blanked out on what I was going to say. Oh yeah, and it's kind of a risk, because Hiccup is an iconic character. So the concept of aging Hiccup is kind of a risk. Like, think about how many iconic children there are. And how much of what works about them works as a kid. Charlie Brown, Ed, Edd and Eddy, the Powerpuff Girls. Imagine if you made a show with them as older. That's kind of a risk. But the fact that this film has the balls to just age everyone, I think is so creative. I mean, the shock value is kind of worn off at this point because I've seen lots of posters and stuff, but still, pretty cool. And I also love how this isn't just a sequel. They're looking at this film as a trilogy. There's a third one, which already has a release date booked for 2016, and they are looking at this as a trilogy. I mean, Dean DeBois, who, when he came back, returned to direct this film, he was thinking, I'm not just going to make a sequel, I'm going to make 2 more, and it's going to be a trilogy. So he's not just looking at this one film. I mean, he's obviously, assume it's going to be a good film, but he's looking at it as part of a bigger story. With that said, I could potentially spoil something, so don't get me wrong. So don't listen to this if you don't want a potential spoiler, but given that, it's safe. I'm pretty sure this movie's going to have some sort of cliffhanger. And I just remembered something else. Sorry, I just remembered something. I had to put it down for it. But yeah, this one's probably going to have a cliffhanger ending, because Dean DeBois said Empire Strikes Back is going to be a huge inspiration on the film. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if something's not resolved in the end of this movie, or if it ends and everyone's at their lowest low. That won't surprise me. Also, there's flying sequences in this film, which look pretty cool. I can't wait to see those, especially given DreamWorks is a new animation software. I'm really curious to see how it looks. And lastly, DreamWorks usually tends to do a good job with their sequels. Shrek 2, really good. I have it on DVD. I'd run down and get it, but... Actually, I should have had it handy, but... I want to run down and get it, because then it's going to have the awkward minute of nothing in front of the camera. But yeah, Shrek 2 I really like. Kung Fu Panda 2 really good. Sequels that could have just been throwaways. Just, oh, you'd have that good first movie and then that bad sequel. But no, those sequels were really good. Even Madagascar 2, slightly better than the first one. It's still but it was better than the first one. So I have no doubt DreamWorks will hopefully once again do a good job with Kung Fu, with this sequel. There are some things that worry me though. For one thing, the second trailer for this film gave a lot away, such as the climax, and they revealed Cate Blanchett's voicing a character in this movie. I won't say much about her character in case you haven't seen the trailer, but if you don't watch the second trailer, it gives too much away. Because one thing they give away is they give away a lot about the character Cate Blanchett voices. And there's something about the character that you honestly would have been pretty shocking in the film had they not given it away in the trailer. And I'm worried that a lot of the film's going to bank on that. Hopefully it's like Winter Soldier, where even if you know who the Winter Soldier is, it's still an enjoyable movie. It's not like it's the centerpiece of the film to the point where if you know who he is, the movie's ruined. Another thing that worries me is that this film will be a rehash of the last one, or that it'll feel too similar to the Cartoon Network show, or that the show on Cartoon Network has been like copying ideas from the film, and that the film's just going to feel like a slightly nicer looking version of the show. Like, there's some stuff that has me worried about that. Like, the villain in Dragon 2 reminds me a bit too much of Alvin from Alvin the Treacherous, and Stoic gets a dragon in the show, and he gets a dragon in this film. I'm also worried that this film will suffer without Chris Sanders. Now, in case you don't know, the last one was co-written and co-directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBois, who they worked on. They made Lilo and Stitch, and they also helped write some of the 90s Disney movies like Mulan. Dean DeBois has come back to work on How to Train Your Dragon 2. In fact, he was asked by DreamWorks to do How to Train Your Dragon 2, and he said, I'm only going to do it if you let me make it a trilogy. And they're like, fine. But anyway, so he's back, but Chris Sanders sorry. But for some reason, Chris Sanders was assigned to work on the Croods, which if you see my Croods review, you already know I'm not too big on Croods. So I'm worried that the film is going to suffer without Chris Sanders, because he was busy working on Croods, so he couldn't work on this. And oh yeah, I just saw the Metacritic score, and it was positive. I forget the specific number, though, but... hang on. Actually, wait, let me go back. Woo, 74 right now, and it... oh, the second one has a 74 on Metacritic right now. But unfortunately, it's only like 6 reviews, so it is probably going to change. But anyway, I digress. So Chris Sanders, so I feel like he's being wasted on Croods, because he clearly didn't have much influence on it. And not only that, but DreamWorks has him working on Croods 2, so he can't even come back to work on Dragon 2 or Dragon 3. He's stuck with Croods, which is a shame. Because I think he would be much better utilized here, because now Dean DeBois is like complete and total control of this film. He's both the writer and the director. And whereas the last film he had Chris Sanders to bounce ideas off of and they could work together, here it's just one guy in control. And I like it when there's multiple guys in control. Like there's multiple writers or something, because then they can bounce ideas off each other. If it's one guy, there's no one to say, can we do things this way? Again, I'm not dissing Dean DeBois. What I'm saying is that Dean DeBois, I think it would be better if he had Chris Sanders with him. They're a talented duo. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And I've heard Chris Sanders was like a producer or something on the film, so he can bounce off ideas. But I really doubt Chris is that involved. I mean, unless it really means that much to him. So now let's talk about how the film's going to do financially. Now, Screen Junkies, they did a video predicting what the top 10 summer box office films are. Some of them put Dragon too high, some of them didn't, but no one had it at number one. I think this is going to be the highest grossing film of the summer. This film should have no problem making money. DreamWorks has been worried in the past about their films bombing, and I'm always like, they're going to more than make up for it with How to Train Your Dragon 2. This film is going to clean house this summer, wipe the floor. It is going to make a shit ton of money. For one thing, it's marketed well. So everyone who is interested in seeing this film or would be interested in seeing this film knows about the release date and is already ready to go see it, myself included. So no problems there. Also, first one, really good. A lot of people love the first one. It's one of the most popular. It's probably the most popular DreamWorks film since Shrek. Like the film that everyone loves, everyone likes, everyone really likes it. Some people are saying it's as good as Pixar. There are people who say it's the best film DreamWorks has ever done. And this film's been out for 4 years. And in those 4 years, an audience has really grown for this film, which can not only consist of a bunch of little kids, who some of which probably watched the cartoon or are pumped for this movie, but also a lot of teenagers and adults. It has a widespread appeal. It's not like one of those kids' movies like Rio or Cloudy with Dancing Meatballs, where it has like this, like where it's mainly just geared towards little kids. No, this has a much broader appeal, and that's the beauty of good anime. A good animated film can appeal to everyone, and it has the potential of bringing the most money because everyone, regardless of whether they're 5, 20, or 60 years old, can go in and see this film. It doesn't isolate a particular audience. And when you play to that, you can make a lot of money, and that film is going to make a lot of money. And also, this film benefits from not really that much competition. I mean, animated film-wise, the only competition it has is Legends of Oz Dorothy's Return, which isn't really doing that well at the box office. I mean, I've never seen it on Box Office Mojo being the top 3 outside of maybe its first weekend. The only other competition it has is Planes, but Planes is geared more towards little kids, and I think a lot of people hopefully a lot of people felt suckered into that film. We'll come back. DreamWorks would have had to contend with Good Dinosaur, which is a movie that Pixar was supposed to release this summer, but they had to delay it to 2015. So DreamWorks is the only major animated film that's geared towards families coming out. So it has no competition. It's coming out the same day as 22 Jump Street, but again, as I said, 22 Jump Street, it's a sequel, and it's also geared towards a separate audience, so I don't think 22 Jump Street has as broad of an appeal as How to Train Your Dragon 2. And it's also thankfully, June July and August aren't as crowded as May. Like, there's a lot of time in between big releases, so if this film catches on, it has plenty of weekends where it will just make lots of money and have very little to contend with. And I mean, look at Despicable Me 2. Go on to Box Office Mojo and look how much money that made. Now imagine if How to Train Your Dragon is released. And as I'm going to say in a bit, I think if it does really well, it could surpass it. I think another benefit this film has is .3D. I mean, a lot of people, the .3D from my ear, I haven't seen it in .3D, but I keep hearing it looks really good in .3D, especially on the big screen. So hopefully, a lot of people are probably going to go see it in IMAX or .3D, which isn't normal for kids' movies, but considering Dragon has those awesome flying sequences and actually uses the .3D well, I think that there are a bunch of people who are probably going to go see this in IMAX or .3D who wouldn't normalize. Like Doug Walker, he said he saw it in IMAX and it looked really good. See, it's going to do really well. So, I think this film is a shot at making $1 billion. But here's what it needs to do. It's going to make a lot of money regardless of how good it is. As long as it's passable, it should do really well. I mean, Despicable Me 2 got okay reviews, and it was like, until Frozen came out, it was the second highest grossing film of the year, and now Frozen's like number 1 from this year. So it won't, if it's Despicable Me 2 quality of just alright, it will do well, but it won't make much of an impact. And that everyone will go and see this film, but no one will really talk about or remember it. But if the sequel is something special, if it's really good, if it's getting really good word of mouth, people generally love it, it's going to make $1 billion. Look at Frozen. I mean, the reason the movie made as much money as it did is because it was really good and people loved it and they went and saw it multiple times. They bring their friends to see it. They tell people to see it. Shrek 2. The reason why, for the longest time, it was the highest grossing animated film of all time. And why I think still to this day it was like the highest grossing animated film domestically is because it got really good at word of mouth. Word got out that this wasn't just a half-ass sequel. It was a good sequel. And if this film gets really good word of mouth, lots of people are going to go see it, and it should make a lot of money. Hit $1 billion. So it's really important that this film actually gets good reviews, so people are talking about it, so it's not like everyone goes and sees The Weeknd and like, oh, whatever. Because that's what happens with films like Godzilla and Amazing Spider-Man 2, is that they weren't that good, so everyone just saw them the first weekend and then just forgot about them, and they lost their hype after that. And I think it's especially important, since DreamWorks has a franchise in mind, that they keep this praise going. That they make it good. Because here's the thing, How to Train Your Dragon 3 is coming out the same weekend as Finding Dory. And here's the thing, if DreamWorks isn't going to budge, they need to be a major contender. They need this movie to be almost just as, if not as close to, if not as popular as Finding Nemo. Because when you want people to leave this fear, especially if it ends on a cliffhanger, you want them to be really invested and really engaged in what's happening. To the point when those credits roll, people should be upset that the movie ended the way it is. They should want to know what happens next, and be pissed that they have to wait 2 years to find out, and when the third one comes out, they should be pumped to see what happens. So, fingers crossed that that's what happens. So, will I go see this film? I would love to. I really want to see it. It looks like a good sequel. And there isn't that much out in June, and I really want to see this in 3D for the flying sequences. I may not get a chance to see it in theaters, though, just because, yeah, my parents might think I'm weird for wanting to go see an animated film, and I don't. Also, I still haven't seen X-Men Days of Future Past, but I will make an effort to see this film at some point. So yeah, that's all I have to say. So, are you pumped for How to Train Your Dragon 2? Please comment and let me know below. And yeah, as always, like, dislike, comment, and subscribe. JStars360, signing out. And sorry this video went on so long, but I just had a lot to say.